Hello and welcome to Movie Joust. My name is Jesse Nussman, a film critic living here in Atlanta, Georgia. And with me on the other line, as always, getting ready to rage out and destroy the White House, which may be a good thing these days. It's Jason Evans and Josh Sewell.
So if we can start the podcast with a tangent right away, when you say that, I bought my daughter like a toy phone the other day, and it was like a toy antique phone, and it had like the corkscrew cord on
Was
there.
she like, Dad, what
goes,
is this?
She said, "What is this?" And I was like, "I'm ready for the retirement home."
It's like when you're watching a movie and someone goes to a payphone and you're just like, these things don't exist anymore.
Right.
What's really funny you bringing up payphones is like, so I was in London a few months ago and they still have like the red payphone booths, but they only exist for like tourist photos. Like nobody actually, they're not functional to my understanding, but they're like still like on every street corner because some tourist wants to like go in and like do a little selfie stick with them. Guys,
speaking of things that tourists would like but are not really functional, Marvel movies.
All right, so we have our kind of first big blockbuster of the year. It is Captain America: Brave New World, which, despite its title, is actually not a movie where Anthony Mackie sits down and reads Aldous Huxley's beloved dystopian novel.
It's not brave. It's not new. There's a world.
There is a moment in the movie where I almost did the like Leo meme where they do say like it's about to be a brave new world, but I didn't have the energy in me because the moment in which they say that was so stupid and like underwhelming that like it wasn't even like the awesome stupid thing of like Face Off, where like when is it Nicolas Cage that says literally like I want to take his face off. It's not even that fun. So should we attempt to kind of pitch to people like what Captain America: Brave New World is about, or do we think they know based off the trailers?
And that's this week's episode. Bye, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, the trailers tell you almost everything you need to know about the movie. In fact, I'll launch in. It's not a spoiler. It should be. It's not a spoiler that at the end of the movie is the battle between Captain America and the Red Hulk.
So do you think it's a spoiler to say that's the end of the movie, or we're probably more giving people a fair warning if they're like, I'm about to get 2 hours of Captain America versus like a giant red in Harrison Ford, and that's really not the movie you're getting. That's maybe like the final act of the movie you're getting.
But my point in this is to say that I believe that a not great but a fairly good, decent at least script and idea and concept for where to take these characters is completely undone and ruined by the marketing for the film. We don't know, if you are just in the movie and don't know anything about any marketing, didn't see a poster on your way in, haven't seen a trailer or anything about it.
Go to the drink machine, because when I got a drink, there's like the Red Hulk from Coke. Like,
if you don't know in advance, if you're just experiencing the movie as the story is intended to be told to us, the appearance of the Red Hulk, though foreshadowed perhaps a bit, is a surprise and would be an interesting twist and creates a different ending than where you think maybe the movie is headed. Oh, who's the bad guy? Oh, wait a second. Suddenly I'm presented with this new situation. Instead, because of the marketing, everything that the story is trying to do for us is undone. It's already been presented to us in the trailer, in the poster, in the drink machine. And that to me it's unconscionable on the part of Marvel. If this was your story, then be true to it. That's my complaint about the film. I think other than that, it's actually a fairly decent film.
As somebody who is not as sold on the film as you are, I think that's our biggest clue that even Marvel doesn't have as much faith in this as
I mean,
we would
did
like,
you
because
read the
they're like,
Vulture
"Oh,
piece that dropped today where like people who worked on the movie basically have like spilled the beans of like, we kind of knew making this, and that like there was an exuberant amount of reshoots
Yeah.
and like
what was
whole
it, like
sections
3
that had to
months
be
or something of reshoots, which is what like a traditional shooting schedule is.
Yeah.
yeah.
And the fact that
Yeah. The reshoots were an entire
Yeah.
movie.
And
Yes,
so
I
the
agree.
fact that they're like, okay, we know that we have a cluster on our hand. Let's sell them with Red Hulk. Seems to me like Marvel throwing in the towel before the movie opens. But this is all behind the scenes kind of stuff. Like if you just judging the movie on what you see on the screen on its own merits, it's still not great. The narrative is incoherent, which makes sense when you're piecing it together months after the script is written. You've got a character played by Giancarlo Esposito who wasn't even in the movie till principal photography wraps.
Wasted.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
it's
completely
like they
waste.
said,
How dare you sign Giancarlo Esposito and then waste
it
him like
feels
that?
like
It's
the
ridiculous.
direction for his character was be the guy you are on Breaking Bad, but louder.
That yeah. I kind of agree with you, Josh. This movie has just sort of like evaporated from my head, like evaporated like on the car ride home. And you know, I've been kind of stewing on like what is the big take I could have, you know, to say about this movie. And I think my biggest problem with it, other than the point that Jason brought up, which we can't really help because that's just how the marketing rolled out. But my biggest problem with like the movie itself is a bit of the problem I have with some of the other Captain America movies, but I will give the caveat that like Winter Soldier and Civil War are way more entertaining and engaging than this movie is. But a lot of the Captain America movies have, it feels like, tried to be about you know, what are the political ramifications of the Marvel universe? And maybe some of my frustration with some of them, like, I'm maybe going to, like, go out on a limb and say, like, Civil War and Winter Soldier, while movies I like and think are very fun, would not even be near, like, my favorite Marvel movies. And I think some of the things I bump up against in those movies I think are really exaggerated in this one, which is, you know, this is trying to be kind of a conspiracy thriller about Captain America unraveling this sort of like, you know, corrupt conspiracy that goes like all the way up to the top and maybe even implicates the president of the United States, who Harrison Ford plays. And I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of the world we live in now, which is a little unfair, but like I did kind of leave the movie on the car ride home being like, you know what? If you're going to do that, like if you're going to really like stand there and be like, we're going to do a movie that explores the like socio-political ramifications of like stuff that happened in previous Marvel movies, go there.
Right. Yeah.
Like, do not like go there. Do not be afraid to like offend someone on like the left or right or whoever. Like this is all of these movies are, you know, very consciously hearkening back to stuff like the Parallax View, or there's a lot of the Manchurian Candidate in this movie.
Oh yeah.
And
But they're not even. It's not on the same plane with those movies.
no, I agree, but I think I bring up those movies
This
to say
is
like
like-
those
this is like
those movies have a nihilism to them and a bit of like a political anger to them that I think if you're going to make this, sort of feels like a movie that wants to be like, you know, questioning our institutions and wants to be about Captain America questioning, you know, the allegiance of the presidency and all this stuff, but also kind of like doesn't want to lean into that too much to like anger anyone, because this is a $200 to $300 million blockbuster that's got to like not only like play to all four quadrants, but has to like make money in China and stuff like that. And so that's a bit of my frustration, is like, don't tempt me with like the more interesting, provocative movie and then just kind of do like the half-assed version of it, which I sort of thought this was.
Yeah, your explanation there, like, what popped in my head is like, this movie is to 3 Days of the Condor what like Joker is to Taxi Driver.
Yes.
Where your filmmakers are like, I've seen those movies, and you're like, yeah, are you gonna comment on them or build on them? And yeah, I'm with you. Like, it's, you know, not to go too far in this direction, but it's like, and again, not the movie's fault, but I'm like, the stakes not that high comparatively.
Or like, I don't care about the stakes of like, we have this, I mean, I guess this is a spoiler, but it's really like so uninteresting in the movie. Like, what do we do with that giant like celestial being that's just like floating in the ocean from Eternals? And it was sort of like, I don't know, maybe there was just something about like, you know what, there's actually like real world shit that like is going on that like the people who made this movie are too big of pussies to like even like touch or like deal with like what is the real like impact on the ground of like the crazy stuff that happens in the Marvel movie. Jason, are you about to say I'm being like a weird woke millennial?
No. So I'm going to say that you know, it does not give me great pleasure to defend this film because it is flawed in a whole lot of ways. But I'm going to try and come at this from the standpoint rather than the standpoint of, am I creating a great political thriller, which it is not.
No.
From the standpoint of, does the Marvel audience, an audience that has been bitterly disappointed in films like The Marvels and several other of the recent movies, does the Marvel audience kind of a little bit get what they're coming, you know, what they expect to get in this film? Is it watchable? I mean, there have been some Marvel movies lately where I'm like, I can barely sit through this thing. And I think that it reaches those bars. I'm not going to say it's a course correction, but it's a turn back toward kind of what maybe they should be doing a little bit better.
I guess I thought.
Well,
finish it. Yeah.
But I thought the pacing was good. I mean, we've had some Marvel movies that were bad that were 2 hours and 40 minutes. This thing clocks in at like 100 minutes or so. It's a very reasonable amount of time. I wasn't bored while I was watching it. It has a ton of problems. I could spend 30 minutes telling you Anthony Mackie doesn't have the charisma necessary. The story doesn't make sense. The two films that it pulls from are The Eternals and The Incredible Hulk. Maybe the two worst films in the MCU. Like,
that was something funny that I was going to bring up is like, definitely I think the first thing, or one of the first things I said to you when we were walking out was like, wow, I was not expecting that I was going to need to have to like remember everything that happened in the Incredible Hulk movie, which had like a completely different cast, and that it feels like even Marvel has been like, that's the like weird, ugly stepchild that we don't talk about. Like, none of the other movies have really like, you know, they've basically said like introducing Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk in Avengers. That's our introduction to the Hulk. We're going to forget about that. But this has like whole plot threads from that bad 2008 Incredible Hulk movie that I totally forgot about, and that it is just funny that like maybe the most maligned, forgotten Marvel movie is the one that this one is like most pulling on in terms of like continuity.
Yeah, it feels like
again, my bottom line is it's watchable, and I don't think that the plot was quite as much of a mess as you guys did, and I think that Marvel fans will be reasonably pleased, and I feel like maybe Marvel is finding a way again. Marvel has a huge problem anytime they have a solo movie. You're always like, where's everybody else? And this movie, at least to me, kind of makes sense with what it's doing with its characters.
Yeah,
so
but
I don't know.
But don't you also feel like this movie is just...
I'm struggling.
Yeah, because I mean, don't you all like... Even the part of my brain that's like, all right, let me think of your like common everyday MCU fan. Like, I don't even know if those people... Like, I don't even know what they'll think of it. Like, this kind of seems to me like one of the MCU movies that might get hit with a little bit of the like, it's kind of just spinning its wheels, which just sort of feels like where the Marvel movies have been these past few years. Is just sort of like who are the people that we have left that we can kind of pull off the bench and kind of bring forward. And like, there's not a whole lot advancing kind of the cinematic universe aspect of it, which isn't always the most important thing to me, but I know is an important thing to a lot of people. And I don't know, it's sort of caught in that weird, to me, in this weird middle of, it's not enough of a sort of like, everything is being like, here's the big, like, you're gonna get back on the train moment for kind of your average MCU fan, while also it kind of not working to me as either like an action movie or a political thriller or all these other things. So I don't know. What do you have to think, Josh?
Yeah, I feel like I kind of feel like I'm kicking a puppy at this point because, Jason's got a point.
This is a $300 million movie. It's fine. These people will all be fine.
People that are just wanting to see superheroes beat up bad guys are going to be happy. But it's just, I feel like for every step,
it has good action scenes.
Yeah, the action sequence, the fight sequences are good, but like I feel like for every step forward Marvel takes, they take a couple of steps back. Like, spoilers, there's an end credit scene, but like in a Marvel movie, but like,
and it's an end credit scene that means it's so meaningless.
It's an end credit scene that's really like, hey, here's something that like we've basically been telling you is like the next big stage for like 5 years at this point.
But I feel like
it's so bad.
I feel like that's them learning from like the end credit scenes since Endgame are introducing characters that we are never gonna see again. And with this one, they're like, okay, we need to keep it vague enough that it could mean anything, and which is what happens. And so that's sort of a half step forward, but they also run into, they're back to their villain problems in a big bad way. It's like, how can we make a good villain? Let's make him a minor character from a movie that came out the same year as the original Iron Man.
That kind of gets into a little bit of what I was talking, like, wouldn't the ballsier move to just be like, make Harrison Ford the villain? Right? But like, they don't want to do that. No. And I will just
because he's Harrison Ford. Right. He's Han Solo. You can't make him the bad guy.
Yeah.
The other issue I had with it is they're back in sort of a Killmonger situation. Not that the character in this movie is the villain, but everything that Isaiah Bradley, who is a carryover from Falcon and Winter Soldier, played by Carl Lumbly, who is fantastic in this movie. I just feel bad that they give him almost nothing to do. But in hindsight, he's absolutely right about everything, which makes your hero look like an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems I think in the movie, you're right, the villain problem is unbelievable. There are functionally, I guess, 3 villains in this movie,
which none of whom I don't quite understand how they all totally connect together.
It's because they were shot in 3 different times and places at various stages of production.
Well, and I'm not clear what any of them are really hoping to accomplish in terms of something that matters. It's just, I agree. A lot of that stuff is a mess.
But I feel like to try to sort of end this on a semi-positive note, I don't feel like any of this is Anthony Mackie's fault. I don't feel like any of this is Harrison Ford's fault. I feel like those two, Carl Lumbly, like I said, and forgive me, I'm forgetting the actor's name, who plays basically the new Falcon.
He was in the Top Gun sequel.
Winter Soldier, yeah. But they all like go
Danny Ramirez.
They all go above and beyond to do what they can to make this work. Like, none of the issues I have fall on their shoulders at all. I think that they salvage this to make this sort of the watchable movie that Jason's talking about. But everything else just feels like a focus group that was too scared to make any real decisions.
Well, and this is the problem that Marvel has had for a while, I think. Look, Shira Haas is in this movie. I'm a huge fan of Israeli cinema. Shira Haas is the biggest star in Israeli cinema. She is a great, wonderful actress.
The bodyguard person? I'd never seen her before, so
she was in,
please tell me more.
She was in a series on Netflix called Unorthodox, which is incredible. must see, really great. She's been in a couple Israeli films that are. She was in an Israeli film called
That's the
Asia.
one that I
That
couldn't.
is,
Yeah, she's
it's one of the
fantastic.
best Israeli films I've seen in years. She like best actress quality stuff. But the point I was going to make about her is between her and Danny Ramirez and Carl Lumley and Giancarlo Esposito and Tim Blake Nelson, there are too many damn characters in this movie. And we're being introduced to virtually every one of them, with the exception of Anthony Mackie. All the others are, we only have a little tiny bit of perspective. We're being introduced to all of them. They frankly, I'm not sure they each have all that much to do. If Marvel hadn't focus grouped the crap out of this, if they had just made a tighter story with fewer characters and a narrative that's stitched together, as opposed to one that you're pulling from 15 different places and 5 different screenwriters, I think you would have had a good film. They're just afraid to do that at this point. And everything they're doing is about how do we tread water until we get to the next movie where we're bringing in 8 different superstars.
How do we not disrupt the theme parks,
Yeah.
And it's a pity, but all that, like, it looks great. It doesn't look as bad as Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
That is true.
did.
That is true.
It's not as much of a mess as Eternals was.
However, I will say it is abundantly clear that there are large chunks of this movie where no 2 actors were in the same scene together.
I will agree to that. As much as I will say, the one bit of like pure movie-going joy that this movie brought me is how hard Harrison Ford commits to the like I'm turning into the Hulk bit, where
Absolutely.
like when he starts turning into the Hulk and Harrison Ford's like whole body, I wish we could do this on video so people could see, where his whole body's shaking, he's just like
And I know, like, I've been pretty hard on this film as far as visual effects goes. Red Hulk looks fantastic.
Red Hulk looks good, but definitely like I was like that sequence I think definitely has a couple moments in it, in like the big climactic battle, where I kind of got the vibe you were talking about, Josh, where I was like, I don't think any of these people are in either a real place or they're in the fake space that has been constructed here in Atlanta together. They all feel like
there's one character. I don't know, like, I don't know if anything in this movie is a spoiler because everybody's name is on the poster. So I will just be careful and say there's a character who shows up in one of the final scenes that we haven't seen in a while. And I literally thought she looked like a Pixar character. Like, she looked animated.
I still think they may have like dubbed her voice and taken, like, she looked so digital and weird. What was going on? It was
her and Harrison Ford, I will bet money, have never met.
Yes. They're like on the red carpet and he's like, who?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's your father? Really?
Well, I do want to ask you guys, like, especially Jason, you're the big box office prognosticator among us. Like, do you think this movie will do well? Because, like, okay, Deadpool and Wolverine, huge hit last year, but I feel like the last few Marvel movies have been disappointments. Like, the Marvels was a giant bomb. I forget what others were around. Ant-Man underperformed. Doctor Strange 2 underperformed. A lot of these recent Marvel movies, it just seems like there is a fatigue setting in. So I'm curious, do you think that this is a movie that, because there's nothing else really out there, that people are going to be like, there's a Red Hulk, I'm going to go see it? Or are people just so burnt out and this isn't, Fantastic Four, where it's like really big characters that like have not been adapted into this universe before? And that seems like the one, if we want to like tease our thoughts about that and Thunderbolts, like Thunderbolts seems like more of the pathway we've been on, but like there actually seems to be some excitement about Fantastic Four. I can't tell if there's excitement about this movie or not.
So give me a number. You're talking box office. Give me a number, and I'll as an over under, and I'll tell you which way. What's your number? I mean, what does it need to be a success? 300
domestic or global?
I say
Either
let's say 300. Let's say to just break even to the hypothetical number this movie costs, which it sounds like was a lot.
Okay, are you saying 300 domestic or global?
Let's say global.
Oh, it's easily going to 300 global is not even a question. I to me the number is like 250 domestic, 500 global, and I think it probably that's about where I think it probably gets to. Does that make it a success financially? It's close, probably not, but at least they don't lose a lot of money on it.
It just becomes a thing where Disney's like, well, we at least like are not in the red on this, even though
it keeps the Marvel is dead headlines away for a while.
Yeah, if this film doesn't make it to 200 domestically, that's a problem. That's a big problem. I think it may do better internationally than it does domestically because it's easier to understand when there's more action. That's always better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
from an international standpoint, and this film has a pretty good bit of action.
But do you wonder if maybe the international bit of it is maybe like this is a very, very like United States focused kind of story and stakes.
I don't know about this. Look, Japan plays a fairly key role in part of the plot. And we even get it. We get an Indian prime minister at one point. Believe me, when Marvel's selling this in India, the scene with the Indian prime minister is going to be prominent. And it does not come off as India or Japan or any of these other nations are being unreasonable, nor does it come off as the U.S. is always right. In fact, if anything, the U.S. looks pretty sketchy in a lot of this film. I think those kind of things play pretty well internationally.
Part of me wonders, though, I think you're totally right. The action sequences are really strong. But I think because of the narrative cluster that this movie ends up being, you also have large stretches of movie where characters stop and deliver 5-page monologues of exposition to the screen. And I'm just wondering if they want to read that many subtitles.
I mean, that's
a
very, very fair criticism. I don't disagree.
We'll have to see. Guys, should we transition to maybe not a movie that's gonna, run the box office, but a movie that we definitely liked better than Captain America: Brave New World?
Yeah. Speaking of international incidents.
Yeah. I actually think that this movie is as opposite from Captain America: Brave New World as any film could be.
And yet are sort of about corrupt political leaders. So I guess there is sort of a way we could tie it together. So I'm still here. We briefly kind of touched on it when we did our Oscar nominations episode, and was sort of the surprise Brazilian movie that got Best Picture nomination. I believe Miranda Torres got is she nominated for Best Actress?
Yeah, Fernanda Torres.
She is,
Yeah, Fernanda Torres, sorry. Would one of you like to take the reins and explain to people what this movie is about?
I mean, it takes place in I want to say it's 1950s Brazil.
70s, yeah.
No, it goes forward in time to get to the 70s. Maybe it's 60s.
It's definitely got to be like 60s, like at earliest, because like some of the fashion choices are very like.
Yeah,
no one was wearing that in 1954 or whatnot.
You know what? Actually, now that I'm thinking about the fashions and stuff, it probably is late 60s, early 70s.
Yes.
In any event, Brazil is under a military dictatorship that is oppressive and difficult, and is looking for anyone who is trying to undermine it. And we spend a tremendous amount of time with a family of I want to say there's 6 people in the family. I forget exactly.
There's at least 4.
It's 5 kids and then the husband and wife.
Okay, so 7 people in the family. The husband is a former politician when there used to be what resembled a democracy, and at one point he gets picked up by the military police, and we sort of go on this journey with his family as they try to find out what's happened to him, and all of them are imperiled as a result of being in a military dictatorship where there are no rules, at least no rules that govern the people who are governing you.
So, guys, did this movie live up to the Oscar hype? Was this the surprise, oh my gosh, we missed this one last year? Or is this all politics?
I think it's a little of both. As this was the only film I didn't get to see before nominations were announced because, to be frank, it wasn't on my radar as far as when I saw that Fernanda Torres won the Best Actress Golden Globe and the reception that she got in the room, I was like, uh-oh. Okay, so something's happening.
Yeah.
And so that kind of got it back on my radar. And so when I finally watched it, I'll admit that me watching the film, I was coming to it with both the politics of the real world and the way less important award season politics,
Yeah,
so,
that's sort of what I meant by politics, is both kind of whatever your thoughts are on what's going on in the world, but also like how the awards race works. I
think
with
it's a
campaigning.
combo of both. I think Fernanda Torres is incredible in this movie. Her Best Actress nomination is totally warranted. She's fantastic in this.
Totally
film.
Deserved.
It's not a big over-the-top showy part like a Demi Moore in The Substance. Not to knock Demi Moore. Demi Moore's great too. It's just a much different kind of performance.
It's a performance of quiet strength,
yes,
I would say.
It's one that Oscar usually doesn't award because, we joke that with Oscars, best equals most, and so there's a lot of quiet scenes. There's not a lot of big over-the-top monologues. She's phenomenal. But we would also, and you've also got the international section of the Academy now is a lot bigger than it used to be, and the Brazilian quotient of the Academy is very passionate about this film, and I think that's kind of rubbing off on some people. But we'd also have to be idiots not to acknowledge how this plays in our current world. This is very, very much a cautionary tale, and I think that in an academy that was trying to do the we're good liberals thing with Amelia Perez, when that exploded, I think that anybody who's trying to put that sort of well-intentioned feeling behind a movie to kind of send a message to the powers that be, I'm Still Here is a very good candidate to do that.
So here's my take on I'm Still Here. I absolutely appreciate the quality of the filmmaking and the acting on screen. It is a film to be admired in those regards. I did not find it entertaining. I found myself quite bored at times. It is 2 hours and 20 minutes, and frankly, a good 90 plus minutes of that, maybe 2 hours of that is just kind of sitting around and waiting.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of waiting in this film.
Which sort of is, I mean, it's that sort of is kind of the drama of the movie in a weird way. Yeah.
Right. I understand why. And if you're telling the honest story, and this is a true story, an entirely true story, I think a lot of the true story is the family waiting, trying to find out what's going on. Although trying to find out means sitting and waiting. When I saw that this got a Best Picture nomination, I said, oh, this is going to be another Parasite. This is going to be another film, for a foreign language film. And I don't count Amelia Perez. Amelia Perez has has a bunch of Western stars in it, in Zoe Saldana and Selena Gomez, and Netflix bought it and is behind it. When a true foreign film, you don't know any of the actors who are in it, doesn't have a big campaign behind it. When something like that gets a Best Picture nomination, I expect to find a real gem. And, that draws me in, that I'm like, oh my God, this is one of the best movies of the year. And I'm so thrilled that I finally got a chance to see it, which is how I feel about Parasite. I don't think this film rose to that. I wasn't entertained. And I don't think the movie's trying to entertain necessarily, but for people out there listening to our voices, like, oh, should I go see this movie? I mean, if you're someone who's like really into the craft of filmmaking, yeah, there's great craft on display. If you're someone who likes to have a good time at the movies and be entertained, I'm not so sure that this is a good film.
It is an aggressive downer of a movie, and even like, not to spoil too much of this true story that you could probably look up if you really wanted to know what happened, but like, there is an aspect of the drama that does become like this difficult choice of like, at what point does this family decide like what is best for them is to move on without answers, which is a difficult thing. I probably agree with both of you. I think I would say to our listeners, if there's anyone that's curious about this movie, it's playing near you, and you want to watch all the Oscar movies, I would say it is worth checking out. Of a a very powerful story, some great performances. I am with you guys. I don't love this movie. It's maybe like,
it's a tough sit.
It is a tough sit. It's a tough sit that also is very like, because there's movies, I think for me, I don't mind tough sit movies if there's something, something like Zone of Interest, or 2 years ago, I guess at this point, last year, a very, very like tough sit, haunting movie that I still love, but was able to sort of...
Zone of Interest is way better than I'm still
Yes. But a movie that like, I think the thing that thrilled me about it was the like formal experimentation of it, which this is a pretty like traditional movie in the way that it's set up. This is like a movie that like, if you're just someone who likes, a good family drama, or a good political drama, you'll if you like something like The Crown or some sort of historical drama, I could see a version of this that was like all English actors that like Ron Howard directed. You guys know what I mean? Of like, so I think that mix of like a very traditional movie that is also like a super downer, I think made it to a thing kind of like what you said, Jason. Like, I respected this movie, and I'm sort of like, I'm thrilled for everyone involved. This is a great like extra promotion for this movie from Brazil, and maybe teaches some of us a little bit about their history and is maybe a cautionary tale, but is not a movie I'm like over the moon for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess if I was going to contextualize it in the way that you're talking about, I would argue this is much more in the vein of maybe something more journalistic than emotional. And so, to kind of go back to what
it has a documentary feel at times, for sure.
To go back to what Jason said, like, it is a capital F film. And if that's not your thing, kind of know that going in. But it's the kind of movie that, to kind of go back to what Jason was saying, it's like, you don't walk out of like Schindler's List or 12 Years a Slave or something, which are both superior movies to what I'm talking about. You don't walk out of those going like, it was great, I just didn't feel entertained,
Yeah.
And not to say that those movies aren't good, but it's entertainment may be part of it, but it's also about education and just honoring the subjects that the story is about.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pause there because I think we may have lost
Jason disappeared. So I don't know what that means for the episode, but I guess we can keep talking. Josh, I don't really have anything left to say about I'm still here, but if Jason said his computer crapped out for a second, well, he needs to get a new to get a new laptop then. Josh, what did you think about the Super Bowl? Kendrick Lamar? Any good trailers? Anything you're looking forward to as we wait for see if Jason just like appears?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm in my I'm going from early to mid 40s, so if I say that I liked the halftime show, does that mean it's not cool anymore? Because, like, I feel like it kind of shows, based on previous Super Bowls, how the generations are changing. But I think, for the aspect of our podcast, I would say, basically the Super Bowl told us that a lot of movies that Hollywood are excited about, we are not.
Yeah, I would second that. Jason's back, so Jason, unless you want to attempt to talk about Kendrick Lamar again, like we were joking around with you the other night.
Your
son, your son and I
am
attempting
too old.
to
I am
mansplain
too old
Kendrick
to talk
Lamar.
about it.
That's what I said. I liked it. Does that mean it's not cool anymore because I liked it?
Before we wrap up, did you have any last kind of I'm still here thoughts? I think all three of us are sort of like good, respectable movie, a tough sit, happy for all those involved. We'll probably not watch again.
Yeah, worth watching as long as you know what you're in for. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think my biggest message is it's a hard sit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people really need to understand that before they go see this film.
You will really leave being like, which one of my family members would I just like? If someone in my family got thrown into a prison and I like didn't know what happened to them, could I just move on with my life? It's a haunting question for us to all ponder.
Hey, can I do a quick thing on the monkey?
Oh yeah. I really want to know what you thought of the monkey because I didn't get a chance to see it, so I got to go with the people.
We weren't cool enough to be invited to the screening.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to tell folks about the new Osgood Perkins movie. Osgood Perkins, of course, Anthony Perkins' son. He is a director and writer who does almost exclusively horror stuff. And he very famously did Longlegs last year, which was one of the scarier movies of the year. Really, really well done horror movie. And his new film is called The Monkey. It's based on a Stephen King play. A Stephen King short story. And I really, really liked it. It is not... So I want to go back to Longlegs really quickly. Uh-huh. I'm not usually a horror fan. I liked Longlegs because I thought it was really, really well done, but it stuck with me for a while. And the reason I'm not a horror fan is because I don't like waking up at night and looking around my room and being like, is there someone in the room? I will freely admit I get wigged out by some horror movies. And so I was a little bit like, oh no, is the monkey going to do the same thing? It doesn't at all. It's a comedy. This is the big surprise. The Monkey is actually not a horror film. It's a comedy. It stars Theo James. He plays twin brothers who, at a very young age, their father leaves them. And I'm not going to tell you their father's played by an actor. And you're just like, what is he doing in this movie? Oh my God. You're so excited when you see him. But these two brothers have, one of the things their father has left them when they're little kids is a monkey that plays the drums, and the monkey is evil. The monkey, the monkey causes people to die. Anytime it plays its drums, someone dies. And these two brothers later in life are like, we need to make sure that the monkey doesn't continue to kill people. It is every single death, and I kid you not, without fail, every single death brought uproarious laughter from the theater. They are gruesome and gory. Blood is splattering everywhere. At one point, a character gets splattered by an exploding body and he pulls a finger out of his mouth from the person who has died. It is gross. It is, but you are just laughing so hard. It doesn't feel super scary as a result of all that. I love that Osgood Perkins has gone this direction, and I am now in on whatever he wants to do next.
Nice.
It's not it's not going to win awards or anything like that.
Yeah. It sounds like it's closer to something like the Evil Dead movies of very gruesome and gory, but the gore in it is the equivalent of a pie hitting the face, in a clown movie. Right.
Yeah. Yes. And it's a lot of fun, and the theater I was in was packed, and everybody was laughing. And when we left and we walked out, everybody was like, you could tell everyone was like, "I'm glad I saw that."
Well, it sounds
all right.
I don't know. It's not a movie that's going to last or anything like that, but it's a lot of fun.
I'm excited to see it. I'll see it when it comes out. Maybe we'll talk about it on the show. You mentioning that Theo James is playing twins. What a year for or just a spring for actors playing multiple versions of themselves, because we get double Robert Pattinson and then double Michael B. Jordan here in the coming months.
True, yeah. And it's also sounds like it's a really good spring or winter/spring for Is it a horror? Is it a comedy? Because you've got Companion, and then you've got Hard Eyes, which I saw last weekend and was really pleasantly surprised by, where it is just as much of a rom-com as it is a horror movie. There are long stretches of the movie where you forget what you're watching, and then somebody graphically dies, and you're like, oh, right, this is what I'm watching. So I'm not a big horror guy, but I'm excited that people are trying to do something new and different with the genre.
Yeah, the idea of this being more of a comedy, I think, is a lot more appealing to me as someone who like really loved like the first 2/3 of Longlegs, and then kind of like it lost me in sort of the last third.
I agree.
Yeah, but
by the way, it's worth noting this film doesn't try. I think where Longlegs really went off the rails was where it sort of tried to explain a little bit of the mysticism that was happening.
Right.
This movie does none of that. Monkey toy bangs its drums, people die. That's all you need to know. There's no like, we have to exorcise the spirit or nah. Play its drums, perfect. People die. That's all you need to know.
Perfect. Well, guys, I think that's about as good a place as any to wrap us up for this week.
Can I really quick?
Yeah.
How on earth did we just do a podcast about a $300 million Marvel movie, a $2 million Brazilian international awards winner, and a horror comedy? We've covered everything. I think we're done.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were about to be like, how did we do that in under an hour? And I was like, well, one of those movies is bad and we don't want to talk about fascism. That's there's your answer. Well, guys, we'll hopefully have more to talk about in the coming weeks. We'll probably do an Oscar episode. We'll definitely talk about Bong Joon-ho's new movie. Maybe
Mickey
we'll
17.
talk about The Monkey more. What else is coming out? I have to say, I'm just like enormously excited for the whatever the Paul Rudd I think you should
Friendship.
Tim Robinson movie. All I need to say is like, of all the trailers that have dropped in the last week, that was the one. I don't care about Jurassic World or Fantastic Four. Like, I watched that and was like, this is gonna be the funniest thing I've ever seen. As someone who's like, Tim Robinson reading the phone book will like have me in like rolling on the floor laughing. So I look forward to discussing that whenever that comes out.
Definitely.